back in the formative days of Big Finish, you got Peter, Colin, Sylvester on board straight away.
Yes.
Paul McGann was slightly later in joining the party.
Yeah, I was looking back at this the other day, actually, because I've been sorting out some old files, and I came across some correspondence with various agents and so forth. And I had to remember that it was actually the beginning. I mean, we recorded Sirens of Time in, I think it was June, July of 1999, I believe, something like that. And the correspondence with Paul McGann started at the end of 1999. So I think we wanted to establish ourselves, get ourselves in position, and then start to rack it up. And then basically, once we were confident about what we were doing, we were like, okay, let's go after McGann, because McGann at the time was the resident doctor. He was the present doctor. And he was in the comic strips. He was obviously been in the movie. You know, he was, you know, there were still posters of him in Doctor Who magazine and so forth. And it was a big leap to go after the present Doctor at the time. But he was very up for it because Paul's a huge lover of radio, and he does a lot of radio scripts, and he loves doing it. So he was like, yeah, great. And we went in for our first recording sessions early in 2000, and now looking back on it, it feels like such a long time between doing Sirens of Time and Storm Warning, but now it really wasn't. It was because we were learning so much so quickly. And the one thing that Paul asked was, at the time he was filming a series called Hornblower, which meant that for more than 6 months of the year, he was actually in the Caribbean, which is a terrible job, awful, terrible. No, it wasn't. I'm sure they had a great time. I mean, but having said that, on set, they were in those stiff collars and very heavy dress suits. And then they were on a boat in the offshore in the blazing sun. I'm sure it wasn't that easy, but he did say they did have a good time doing it. Anyway, he said, look, more than 6 months of the year, I don't see my kids. My kids are growing up and I'm missing it. He said, I'd love to do this. Would you come to me? By which he meant, would we come to Bristol? So basically, we decided to do what amounted to location filming, because we thought if we get a group of actors together who can play multiple roles, sort of like a rep company, and we go down and we record these 4 stories back to back in a studio in Bristol, then, you know, that would work for us and it would work for him as well. So they were, you know, amazing times, because we basically hired rooms in a what was it? It was sort of like a B&B, really, a very good high-end B&B, and we all went in there, and all the cast that come down came with us, and Mark Gatiss came, and various other people. And the second year, people like Simon Pegg came down as well, and Jessica Stevenson and so forth, and they all turned up, was put up overnight in this nice little B&B, and very much a camaraderie, because we weren't going anywhere. So we would turn up in the morning, record from 10 o'clock through till 6 o'clock. Everyone would obviously have lunch together, and then everyone would go down the pub, and then we'd all go for dinner together. And it really was like being on location for a film crew. And we had a great time, and Paul loved it. There was a feeling that Paul might do these 4 and then say, what, you want to do some more? And not want to do any more. And I was the one who was nominated to go and ask Paul, did you enjoy it? Which I thought, yeah, he's enjoyed this, but, you know, just checking. So I chatted to him about a couple of things, one of which I chatted to him about is boxing, because he's a big boxing fan, as I am as well. And we talked about a few fights, and there was one night I had to go back because my house is only about 2 hours away from Bristol, if that. And there was one night I need to go back and do something in the office. So I'd left them to it at 6 o'clock, gone back, and I'd transposed a few fights onto a VHS tape, which is, of course, what we used back then, and had come back. And I gave it to him. I was like, "You remember those fights? Here we go, as a present for thank you for doing this. And by the way, would you like to do it again?" He went, "Yeah, of course." And he was like, "Right, great." And went back in the room and said to Gary, "It's happening." And then we started planning. And then for the second time we went down with Paul, we actually did, no, do you know what? I can't remember if it's 6 or 8. I think it was 8 stories we did back to back, because we spent 2 weeks doing it. Might have been 6. I can look it up on the computer afterwards. But that was harder, because exactly the same thing happened. All lovely, everyone had a great time, except we all got flu. And to such, Paul didn't, thank God, and neither did India. But the rest of us came down. We were keeping our distance from them. We were like, "You can't get the actors ill." And we were in this control room all together. And it ended up on the final day, I remember lying on the sofa, unable to get up. It was proper flu. And in fact, when I drove back from Bristol, I had problems with my breathing and had to pull over. And no, that's right. I stayed on a couple of days. I couldn't leave because I was so ill. And my parents actually came to see me and make sure I was okay. And we decided to drive back, and I was following them in my car, and I had to phone them to say, "I'm having problems breathing," and pulled over, and they got an ambulance, and I went to the hospital. So, and I was in, and I had what do you call it? Some oxygen put on me, oxygen mask, and was breathing away. And that all sorted out, but it was a much tougher going the second time.
You've got as much drama going on behind the scenes than you did in the studio.
Yeah, absolutely.
I could happily talk to you all afternoon, but our time is up, I'm afraid. Thank you for giving us this brilliant insight into the start of Big Finish. And I just want to say, I'm sure a lot of people feel this way, that I, for one, if it wasn't for Big Finish, I wouldn't be the fan I am now. I drifted away from the show and gone travelling the world, in fact. And a friend of mine, when I got back, gave me one of the cassettes, as it were. I said, "You've got to listen to this stuff. It's brilliant." And I've been hooked ever since. So thank you so much, Jim.
Well, thank you for saying that. And we're all fans ourselves. We're doing this because we're fans. And it's wonderful. We make a living out of being fans, which, is one of the ultimate things that you can do as a fan. So
yeah,
thank you very much for supporting us all these years.
Thank you very much, Jason. Cheers.